Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm back with 4 all new Christmas decor DIYs. Each project is really easy to create and affordable. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you do, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Now let's go ahead and get started. For the first project in today's video, I'm using this wooden tool caddy that I picked up from Goodwill. I paid just under $6 for it. And the first thing I'm doing is just painting it with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. I did do a few coats of this paint, and I also made sure to paint the inside of the caddy as well. After that paint was dry, I'm then using my espresso chalk paint on a chip brush, and I'm just dry brushing this color over top of the entire caddy to give it more of a rustic look. Then for the front of the caddy, I created this Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas decal on my Cricut. I will have a link to it down in the description box if you guys are interested in cutting it out yourself. And I'm just getting it centered and transferred on the front of the caddy. If you guys don't have a cutting machine, you can always just hand write this on with some really pretty markers or use stickers or wood letters. Next, I'm using some of this floral foam from Dollar Tree, and I'm just placing it inside of the caddy. And I did have to cut it down just a little bit so that I could get all of the pieces fit inside of the caddy. For the inside, I'm going to be using some of this really pretty pine greenery from Hobby Lobby. I'm also going to be using some random greenery pieces that I had left over in my Christmas floral stash. I believe some of them came off of an old wreath. So I like to just use a combination of different colors of greens, and for this I'm just going to be cutting them off of their stems and then placing them inside of the floral foam. I started by placing the greenery from Hobby Lobby inside first, and then I just built it up with the other greenery pieces from there. Once I had them all spaced out and the way I wanted the green to look, then I moved on and used some of these like iced berries, also from Hobby Lobby, and I just cut them off of their stems and then placed them all around inside of the greenery for a pop of color. I thought it would look really pretty if I added some lights around all of the greenery. I was going to use the pack that I just showed you from Dollar Tree, but I opened them up and they actually didn't work. So I'm just using some other ones that I had on hand. These ones, I kind of wish that the wires were a little bit more dainty or green, but like I said, this is what I had on hand, and the other ones that I had purchased for this project did not work. So here I'm just wrapping the lights around all of the greenery, and then this is what it looks like all finished. I think this turned out so beautiful. It was really easy to do, and it looks really pretty lit up at night. Next is a DIY number 2. For this one, I'm using this framed piece from Hobby Lobby. I actually painted it back in the fall and did not like the way it looked. I did not want this frame to go to waste, so today I'm just going to be painting over it to create a Christmas project. For the inside of the frame, I'm using my Imperial Color chalk paint from Folk Art, and I did do 2 coats of this paint. Then for the outside frame portion, I'm using my rich black chalk paint from Folk Art. Then once that paint was all dry, I'm using my ivory colored paint, and I'm just painting that around all of the edges of the frame just to give them a little bit more dimension and more of a distressed look. I'm also going to be using 8 of these gift tags that came from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to be removing all of the jute hangers that are around all of the tags because I will not be needing them for this project today. I'm then painting the front and the back of all of the tags with my Waverly paint in the color Ivory. After that paint was dry, I used some of my rich black chalk paint around all of the edges of the tags to give them a little bit of distressing and just to make the edges pop a little bit more. Next, I'm going to be putting these numbered decals that I cut out on my Cricut on all of my tags. Now, if you don't have a cutting machine, don't worry. Dollar Tree has sticker numbers that look almost exactly like this, and those are a great option. Now for this first tag, I'm doing the front and back, and it's going to be on the front side 0, on the back side 1, and then I'm going to be doing one single tag with just the number 2 on it. And this is going to be for like one side of the numbers that I'm doing for my countdown to Christmas. Then I'm going to be doing an entire second set of numbers that are numbered 0 through 9. And again, I'm doing the front and back of the tags. So it'll be a tag with 0 and 1 on it, a second tag with 2 and 3, and then so on and so on. I hope that makes sense. Next, I'm going to be getting this Days Until Christmas decal centered and transferred at the very top of my sign. If you guys are interested in the cut file, I will have it linked down in my description box. If you don't have a cutting machine, again, you can use some really pretty paint pens to write this on your sign. Next, I'm putting the tags on my sign, just making sure that they're centered and everything looks correct before I just mark in the top holes of the tags where I'm going to be wanting to make holes in the back of my sign with my drill. Now that I have my spots all marked off, I'm just using my drill to drill holes for my little hangers that I'm going to be adding later on. So these are the ones that I chose to use. I really loved this like goldish bronzy color to them. I did get them from Michael's. And then I'm just taking them and screwing them into the holes that I just drilled out. And they actually worked perfectly. You can get different sizes, but I went with these larger ones since my tags are a little bit larger. Then I'm just placing my tags onto the hooks. You could leave the sign finished just like that, but I wanted to add some detail. So I'm using 2 sets of these bell ornaments from Dollar Tree, and I removed the little greenery that was on the tops of the bells, and then I'm also removing the little tag that holds the bells together. I then painted all 4 of my bells with my raw sienna acrylic matte paint from Folk Art. I did do 2 really messy coats of this paint. I wanted the bells to have a little bit of texture to them and for them to look kind of old. Then once that paint was dry, I went in with my espresso colored chalk paint and just dry brushed this color over all of the bells to give them more of that old distressed look. Then to add a little bit of detail, I'm using some of this pine greenery from Hobby Lobby, and I'm hot gluing it in the top corners of both sides of my sign. Then once I have that added, I'm then hot gluing the bells that I painted over top of the greenery. And then I wanted to add a little bit more of a lighter green color, so I'm using some of these greenery pieces that I had in my craft stash. I'm cutting a few small pieces off and then just gluing those at the very top of the bells. And then to add a little bit more detail, I'm using a strand of jute to create a really small bow, and then I'm hot gluing that at the very top of my bells. And again, I did this for both sides of my sign. And here is my Days Until Christmas sign all finished. I love how this one turned out. To me, this looks like an item that you could purchase in a store. It was super easy to create, and I know that I'll be using it for years to come. Next, we're moving on to DIY number 3. For this one, I'm going to be using this unfinished wood crate that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. And the first thing I'm doing for this one is painting it with my Imperial Color chalk paint from Folk Art. And I am doing the entire piece in this color. I'm then using 2 of these dowel rods from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be painting them with my rich black chalk paint from Folk Art. I did end up using a 3rd dowel, and I forgot to show that, but I did the same thing with it. I just painted that with the rich black colored paint as well. I'm then using 4 of these wooden wheels. These are also from Hobby Lobby, and I'm using that same rich black paint to paint all 4 of the wheels. And then I'm using 1 of these tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, and I'm also painting that with that same black colored chalk paint. I ended up cutting a really tiny piece off of one of the wooden dowels, and this is gonna be the little handle on the wagon that I'm creating, and again, using that same black colored paint. For this project, I'm also going to be using 4 of these unfinished wood caps. These are from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to be using these for the center of my wheels. And I'm using my ivory colored paint from Waverly to paint the tops of all 4 of the caps. Next, I can start putting everything together. I'm taking my dowels and then I'm just pushing the wheels onto the ends of my dowels. I did one end first. And then for the second end, when I put the dowel on, I just kept putting it onto the bottom of the crate and then just pushing the wheel on more and more until I finally had it to where when I put it on the crate, it was tight and there was no gaps away from the edges of the crate and the wheels. And again, I did that for the second dowel and the second set of wheels. Then it was time to attach the dowels and the wheels to the bottom of the crate. So I just moved the dowel over a little bit, placed hot glue on the bottom of the crate, and then put the dowel back into place. And I did that for both of the dowels and the wheels. I used hot glue on the back side of all of my wooden caps to attach them to the center of all 4 of my wheels. I'm then using some hot glue on the bottom of my tumbling tower block to attach it to the bottom of my crate, like you can see me doing here. Then I'm going to be attaching that 3rd dowel that I had painted right onto the tumbling tower block and the very top part of my wagon. Then once I have that attached, I just need the little scrap piece that I had painted, and this is going to be the handle for my wagon, and I'm attaching that with some hot glue. I'm also using this small rectangle piece of scrap wood, and I'm painting it with my ivory colored chalk paint. Then once that paint was dry, I'm getting this freshly cut Christmas trees decal centered and transferred onto the piece of wood. This is a Cricut Design Space design. I did not create this one, but I will have a link to it down in my description box. I did want this sign to be framed at the top and bottom, so I'm using one of these balsa wood strips that I got in a pack from Hobby Lobby. I'm measuring it to the size that I need, and then I'm just cutting it with some scissors. This balsa wood is very, very thin and is easy to cut with scissors. Once I had one piece cut, I then used that to just measure my second piece and then cut that down to size. I'm then using my folk art wood tint in the color walnut to stain both pieces of wood. I'm then using hot glue on the back side of the strips of wood to attach them at the very top and the bottom of my sign. Now that I have my sign all made, I'm attaching it to the very front side of my wagon. I'm going to be using 5 bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree in this project. I just removed the little snow bottoms that were on all of the trees. They're really easy to just pull off. And then once I had those all off, I did want to add some lights around all of these trees. I am using some of these wired lights from Dollar Tree. I just wrapped them around each tree as I was placing it inside of the crate. And what's really great about this project, it's super easy to hide the little battery pack for the lights. You just wrapped it up and stuck it under the tree and you wouldn't even know that it was inside. This is what the project looks like all finished. It is so super cute, really easy to do, and I just love how this is lit up and it looks really cute at night. Moving right along into the 4th and final DIY for today, I'm using one of these unfinished wood frame pieces from Hobby Lobby. And the first thing I'm doing is taking my folk art wood tint in the color walnut, and I'm just painting this wood tint on and then using an old rag to wipe away the excess tint. I did do the back side of this piece as well so that it looks completely finished. And then I'm using some of this plaid paper. This one I think is from Hobby Lobby, and I placed it on the front of the frame, and then I just kind of bent the paper over where I need to cut so that it will fit inside of the frame. Once my paper was all bent, I'm just using some scissors to cut it out. Then I'm using some Mod Podge on the back inside portion of this frame piece, and then once I have the Mod Podge all applied, I'm then placing my cut plaid paper right over top of that and then just pressing out any of the bubbles and making sure that the paper is flat. I have already printed out this Silent Night music sheet. It is a free printable, and I will have a link to it down in my description box exactly where I got it from. And then I just printed it on like a yellow colored piece of cardstock, and then here I'm just cutting it out, and I did size it down to 5 by 7. I'm then applying some of my Mod Podge on the back of my music sheet, and then I'm taking that and just placing it in the center of the plaid paper that I've already applied. I'm making sure to press out any bubbles, and then I did end up having to use a little bit of extra glue on the edges just because this was a piece of cardstock. It was a little bit harder to get to lay down flat. You can see that when I'm adding this jute around all of the edges of my music sheet, some of the paper is a little bit crinkled, but the paper was still wet while I was doing this. I did not wait for it to completely dry down, but once the paper dried down, it laid flat. So here you can see I'm just adding the jute around the music sheet with some hot glue. Next, I'm going to be creating my own wreath with some of this like greenery, strand, garland. I'm not really sure what this is called, but I did get it from Hobby Lobby. I just wrapped it around twice to the size of the wreath that I need because I do want to double it up, and then I cut that with my pliers. And then I'm just taking the two edges or the two ends of the greenery, and then I'm just wrapping them around each other together to make sure that I have that circle shape and it stays in the circle shape. I'm then using some of this burlap ribbon with some gold trim on the edges from Dollar Tree. I'm wrapping it around the very top of my wreath, and then I'm taking that ribbon and pulling it over the very top of my frame, and then the ends of the ribbon I'm securing on the back side of the frame with some hot glue. Next, I'm making a bow. I'm using the same ribbon and I wrapped it around my two fingers twice. I'm then taking the end of that ribbon and pushing it through the very bottom of the strands of ribbon between my fingers, and then pulling this strand up and over my two fingers and then putting it through the bottom loop and then pulling it tight to create my bow. I then removed the bow from my fingers, shaped the bow a little bit so that it looked nicer, and then for the ends, I just cut those in a diagonal shape. For the very last step, I hot glued my bow right to the very top center of my wreath. And this is what the project looks like all finished. Another really easy and affordable Christmas decor project. I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing. Please be sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my future content. And as always, I love to hear down in the comments down below which project from today's video was your favorite. Thank you so much for watching.